Welcome to the AIPH International Green City Conference at Expo 2020 Dubai. This Greening Cities for Sustainable Development Conference. To begin, I'd like to give a special thank you to our sponsors, a special recognition. Our headline sponsors are Expo 2023 Doha, Qatar, 2023 Suncheon International Garden Expo, Expo 21 Hatay, and a gold sponsor, Para. We truly appreciate the sponsor support. We couldn't hold things like this without them. AIPH is and always will be the world's champion for the power of plants. And support for the power of plants is core through all of our AIPH activities and initiatives. As such, AIPH Green City programs deliver activities for AIPH as the world's champion for power of plants. We lead global thinking on the successful integration of nature into the built environment. Specific for the Green City, AIPH arranges events and Green City conferences like this conference today. AIPH shares knowledge and expertise amongst our members through regular Green City reports. We publish the Green City Guidelines with ever-expanding case studies included in those guidelines. AIPH has just launched the inaugural World Green Cities Awards that celebrate leadership and innovative action in using the power of plants to bring resiliency to cities. Judging is soon to start, and the finalists will be announced in May. AIPH provided a series of Green City briefings last year, and we're developing new ones for the future. Yesterday, we looked at the AIPH approved expos, where we have now built in Green City principles and sustainability into the regulations. We'll learn more about that later today too. Through our Green City communications and partnerships, the AIPH is involved in many things, many other activities and initiatives. We're heavily invested in the Green Cities championing the power of plants. AIPH is very active in social media, and we'd invite you to follow us along on our social media channels. The power of plants is gaining notoriety with many other organizations and government and non-government organizations. At COP26 Glasgow, plants and their ability to help sequester carbon and provide other notable benefits finally got some of the recognition it deserves. Our work with partners is proving beneficial, as we'll discover today through presentations from some of our partners from the UN. The theme of today's conference is Greening Cities for Sustainable Development. Green cities deliver local action for global agendas. Our speakers will present the activities and programs that cities and countries are making to achieve the UN SDGs and other global initiatives, with a special focus on the contribution that Living Green makes to meeting stated objectives. With all the attention that the UN SDGs get, we will demonstrate in the conference that making cities greener can be part of agendas and contribute to the SDGs, whether this is developing integrated policy or demonstrating progress through case studies or providing evidence through monitoring. We will show that green cities are important on a global scale, and that by doing this, we will enhance the influence of ornamental horticulture industry and the power of plants. So let's begin with a video from one of our sponsors, Expo 2023, Doha, Qatar.
You are a seed, the beginning of a new awareness, a new global movement. You have life in you. Share it, spread it, bring your thoughts and skills. Make it all fruitful. Tomorrow brings challenges and opportunities. Grow. Grow the resources to embrace science and experience for global sustainability. Grow the tools and use technology to cultivate a new and better future together. Grow the knowledge to reconnect to nature and promote a greener development. Grow the balance between local and global, planet and people, today and tomorrow. Growth starts with you. welcome to Expo 2023, Doha, Qatar. Qatar has the perfect conditions for this growth to take roots. From Doha, we can grow a green desert and a better environment. Our Expo site consists of 3 main areas designed to host, gather, and inspire. Together we can sow the days of tomorrow for everyone to enjoy, everywhere. We are expecting you on the 2nd of October 2023. One Expo site, consisting of 3 character areas, is growing now to welcome you in 2023 to the future of horticulture. You are the seed and the movement that will gather the world in Qatar. Together in Doha, we will grow a green desert for a better environment.
I think we can all look forward to visiting the Expo in Doha. At that Expo, we also are planning on having a Green City Conference, so that'll be fantastic. So I'd like to introduce our first speaker of the conference, Maher Nasser. He has over 34 years of work experience in the United Nations system, during which he has worked in Gaza, Jerusalem, Amman, Vienna, Cairo, and New York. He is currently the Commissioner General of the United Nations here at Expo 2020 in Dubai, and the Director of Outreach for the United Nations Department of Global Communications. In addition to leading the United Nations presence at Expo, he leads the department's engagement with civil society, academia, and the creative community, including the advertising industry. Maher.
Thank you. I was asked to speak at relatively short notice, so I did not have time to prepare a presentation. So I hope that what I'm going to say makes sense in this context. The United Nations is much younger than Expo's. Expo started in 1852, the United Nations 1945. But we see the value in any gathering that brings the world together, especially trying to find solutions or to market innovations and inventions that have a value in creating improvements on people's lives and environmental sustainability. In this Expo, we were really heartened to see the high emphasis on sustainability across almost all pavilions and throughout the thematic pavilions within Expo itself. On cities and the focus on green cities, it's interesting to note that they occupy 3% of the world's land mass, yet they account for 75% of CO2 emissions, 70 to 75% of carbon dioxide emissions. So when we look at where we are between now and 2030, the goals that were mentioned, the Sustainable Development Goals adopted by world leaders at the United Nations in 2015, we're trying to create a roadmap that we know how to get to it, a roadmap to create a world where there's no poverty, no hunger. There's today, of course, Happy International Women's Day, gender equality, 8th of March, and you'll see a lot of that being marked here. Proper access to health, education. But the 17 sustainable goals also have a specific target, a goal on cities, sustainable cities, building, how to build safe, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable cities. And within that, SDG 11, it is, of course, connected to all the other work that member states, private sector, communities, United Nations organizations are working together to reach the goal by 2030. Now that's the good news, is that we do have a map. We know what we need to do to get there, because the 17 Sustainable Development Goals have 169 targets. So there's like measurements of achievement. There are also indicators of achievement. And every year, member states come to the United Nations in July, something called the High-Level Political Forum, and they present, some of them, usually on average of about 40, 45 countries, what is called National Voluntary Review. They make presentations on what their national plans are, where progress was achieved, challenges faced, and how they are going to address those, and they share also best practices. So it becomes an open forum for that. What happened a few years ago, our host city, New York, started also saying, came and said, can we also present our voluntary review of what we are doing as a city, as a large urban center, 8 million people, in how we are adjusting the strategy of the city of New York to meet the targets of the Sustainable Development Goals. Cities, population centers, not only account for 75%, 70-75% of carbon dioxide, of emissions, but they're also home to 56-57% of humanity. In 1960, 60 years ago, a few years before my birth, the population of the world was 3 billion, and 1 billion lived in cities. So that was 1/3 of people on the planet lived in cities in 1960. Today, it's 56%. So it's 4.4 billion people live in cities today. We can't ignore, if we are to meet the targets, we are to meet the Sustainable Development Goals, we have to pay more attention to cities. And city government becomes more important. There are 2 UN agencies that really work closely on these issues. The UN Environment Program, because urban centers and the work that happens in cities and impacts the environment, and UN Habitat. And every year for the last number of years, just in November, they issued a report on the global environment outlook that looks on cities. And they identified the key challenges and issues that happen in cities that contribute to the challenges part, more pollution, loss of biodiversity, and climate change. The cities account for really significant percentage of greenhouse gases through transport and through building. So when we are going to talk about how do we address those challenges, how do we meet the challenge of getting to net zero, getting to reducing the loss of biodiversity and environmental and ensuring environmental sustainability, the role of cities and green cities becomes more and more important. Here at Expo, I think will be speaking after me, the Commissioner General from Singapore. I mean, their pavilion is about the role of a city and how a city can become green. And it's one of the greenest pavilions. If you haven't seen it, you will, I will not steal your thunder. I'll leave it to Larry to talk more about it. But this is something that this is why in Expo, I think we see examples of how to tackle those challenges that may seem insurmountable, but we know that we can do them. We often look at a problem and saying, nah, it's not going to happen. And a lot of people, I was giving a press conference here during the Global Goals Week, and some of the journalists asked me, what makes you so confident that, that we will achieve the SDGs by 2030? We are far off track. I mean, we were far off track in 2019, before COVID. COVID pushed us further off track. And COVID was more felt in cities where large concentrations of people, they interact, they live, they can't, not in rural areas, you're far, you can control it. And most impacted people in cities are the disadvantaged and also women. Again, this is why gender equality and empowerment of women is important in ensuring that they are really given the right place in making decisions because they impact them more. So the focus and the theme of the upcoming horticulture Expo is really important for the United Nations and for humanity, I would say, because we all need to identify solutions that work. So when I said, people ask me, why are you confident that we will achieve the SDGs? I think it's not an issue of confidence, it's an issue of determination. Because if you start doubting that you're going to achieve something, you will not achieve it. You will start finding flaws and maybe let's change our targets, let's lower our expectation. But the targets are there. In 2000, Millennium Declaration, world leaders at the UN said, by the year 2015, we will achieve better improvement. And then we came up with the 8 Millennium Development Goals, which were about halving extreme poverty, reducing infant mortality, improving maternal health by certain percentages. And by actually identifying those targets and adjusting government planning in most affected countries, with the most people living in extreme poverty, progress was achieved. Because once you put the problem there and you identify the solution, then you start readjusting the government budget, but also relationship with the private sector, and you prioritize. The SDGs are 5 steps higher than the NDGs because they are not just about developing countries. They're about every single country on the planet. They're about every single city. They're about every single industry. And our engagement and take on the SDGs is that they are not the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. They are your Sustainable Development Goals. And then when we start believing in that, and when we start engaging private sector, academia, expos, and focusing on finding those solutions, we will find those solutions. Because human ingenuity has taken us to the moon, to Mars. We live in the more or less, probably some say the best age to be a human in terms of like the numbers. If we just look at life expectancy, maternal health, infant mortality, I'm taking an average. Even if you take the global average, of course it varies. There are many inequalities and discrepancies across the globe, but it is much better than it was. But it's not that way for the environment. This is the worst age to be a wild animal or to be a plant in a forest. We see the fastest rates of deforestation. We see rising pollution that is impacting the oceans, that is impacting the plants that are actually producing the oxygen that we need to breathe. So this is why we have to double our efforts to really focus on those solutions and Green cities and having cities much greener, more sustainable, more resilient, more inclusive, and more just and safe is one way to do it. And if your Horticulture Expo is going to be part of that solution, we welcome it and we look forward to see how you can build on it. And I think what is important at an expo is not what happens at expo, but what happens after expo. How do you carry the legacy and how you build on it to move forward, and making sure that the lessons learned, the lessons exchanged are themselves sustainable. So I will stop here, and I understand there'll be Q&A. So.
Step to the side there, and we'll take some questions. Thank you very much, Maher. I think I really appreciated hearing what you just said, because it reinforces what we've been saying all along, and it's so nice to hear it come from outside of our own horticultural mindset. You know, we've been talking for years now about the importance of greening in cities and how it is so important because of the way population and stuff in cities is growing. So thank you very much for that. Do we have any questions at all from the audience? There is a mic over here. Oh, one more thing before I do that. I had in my introductory notes that we must wear masks in the audience, and I didn't say it because I didn't think we were observing it. I got told we're observing it, so please put on your masks unless you're coming up to the stage here or to the mic there. So, any questions, Audrey? Go ahead. Yeah, I think so.
Thanks very much for that. It's a really lovely overview and an indication of what is possible and what we can do. My question revolves around the voluntary reporting. Originally, it started as a way for nations to report on their progress on the SDGs. Then you mentioned New York City, which was reporting as a city. So that's gone a lot further. There are a lot of cities that are now doing voluntary reporting. To what extent is this spilling into large companies and organizations? And what are your thoughts on how that can play a role in greater collective action towards achieving the goals?
No, excellent question. And I should have followed up that other cities have followed on New York City's example and are actually doing that. And maybe the measures adopted by one city can create the platform that others can follow rather than reinventing the wheel. Some of the business forums that the Global Compact, UN Global Compact organizes are opportunities for companies to come and do that as well. We see many declarations from several companies, and I think we have to also always be careful not to be subjected to greenwashing. I think we have to be always very careful that a company is not just saying, I want to put the SDGs on my brand, on outside on my building, and I want to be sustainable, but in actual practice, they're completely the same. They haven't changed much of what they do. But so there are many networks that really monitor this, and I think it's important that more companies move into the area of getting out of the addiction on fossil fuels. This is part of the things that the Secretary General has been really speaking out very forcefully. He issued a red card for humanity, even before the last IPCC report, which came out last Monday, which showed that we are in a much worse place where we need to be on climate. And let's hope that the current conflict in Europe is not going to even push things back and diversify the focus. I mean, of course, the UN and the Secretary General and the United Nations General Assembly have been very clear. The war must end, and civilians have to be protected, and we need to ensure refugees are provided the humanitarian assistance. But that, of course, is a tragic, terrible humanitarian crisis, but it's not the only one in the world. And there are others taking place, but those resources are also being diverted from where they need to be invested to meet the challenge of climate change and preventing the loss of biodiversity and pollution. So companies have a big role to play in that, and we see positive signs. But the positive signs need to also be they need to be held accountable, not just by us, but also by others, by media, by civil society, by you. You see that declarations of the intention to diversify from fossil fuel, and then you look at the investment sheet, and you see that they still own 30% of this company or that company, which is mainly a fossil fuel. So these are the kind of things that are important. And I work a lot with the advertising industry, and they have made similar declarations. They have created an SDG Cannes Lion Award for the best advertising or campaigns that really promote one or two SDGs. And it's a good step, but are they really also carrying forward with beyond that with the brands? And so it's always important to not only listen to the declaration, but also hold them accountable for them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So our next presenter is Larry Ng. Larry is the Commissioner General, Singapore Pavilion, Expo 2020 Dubai, UAE, and Prize Secretary, Lee Kuan Yew World City Prize. Mr. Ng is also appointed by the Minister for National Development as the Registrar of the Board of Architects, Singapore since 2005, with a mission to enhance competency, integrity, and professionalism of the practice of architecture in Singapore. Mr. Ng has extensive experience in the planning, design, and implementation of the public housing in Singapore. Larry will be sharing Singapore's aspiration to become a city in nature through insights into Singapore's land use planning, sustainable urban development approach, and how the island city has enhanced livability through planning its green and blue spaces. He will also illustrate how the Singapore Pavilion, which we've heard a little bit about already, is demonstrating this here at Expo 2020 Dubai.
Very good afternoon to all of you. And first of all, happy International Women's Day to all the world beauties within this room. And thank you for inviting me to share my presentation on Singapore becoming Singapore becoming a city in nature. So I will start off with my presentation with some backgrounds on Singapore land use planning process. Now, Singapore is an island city-state. So we're an island, we're a city, and we're also a country, very complex. Our total area is very small, it's only 728 square kilometers, and our population, it's about 5.69 million, and we're one of the densest cities in the world. Now, from the north to the south, it's only about 23 kilometers. And from east to west, you can just run simply one marathon. Now, we're very small. If you compare to the major city in the world, Tokyo, London, New York, you can see they are much bigger than us. But if you don't compare far, just compare here, the Emirates of Dubai, it's 5.3 times bigger than the city of Singapore. So you see how small we are. Now, unlike many other cities, we need to cater to both the needs of the cities as well as the country, because we are also a country. So things like reservoir, things like defense need, we need to cater for that. So it's very important for us to balance our needs within the country itself. So over the last 57 years of transformation, we have become from the third world city to the first world city. But this transformation is not by chance, but by deliberate planning and good governance. I have to emphasize that. It's very important. Now, first, let me share our planning framework. It is made up of 4 main components. First component is on long-term planning. So Singapore, hello, okay. The Singapore Strategic Land Use and Transportation Plans to guide development over the next 50 years. That's what a long-term plan is all about. We look at 50 years and we review it every 10 years. Then the long-term plan is then translated into a statutory master plan, which is made public to all the developers, the public, so that they can decide what they want to develop within 5 to 15 years. And this master plan is reviewed every 5 years. And of course, we have two more components, the development coordinations and land sales, as well as the development control that will guide us to make sure all developments comply with our master plan. So the long-term plan is very important. It is what has shaped us today. And we have just kick-started the long-term plan last year. So we have 1 whole year of engagement with the public so that we know, but remember, planning is not planning in isolation. You planned not for yourself, but for your nation, for the needs even beyond the nation. So that's very important. So how do we develop sustainability? We look at the 3 important factors: the economic, the social, and the environment. So everyone knows about this, but we, being extra small, we have to plan all and achieve all this within the limited land and sea space that we have. Now, as part of Singapore, conscious effort to be a distinctive city, we always try our best to promote excellence towards curating good architecture and urban design in the city so that we can set out to encourage a more vibrant professional design community. It is the vibrant community that will help you to achieve, because you cannot achieve all this alone. You need the whole community, especially the professional community, to help you to achieve what you want. So next, I will just elaborate on the Singapore Sustainable Development Framework and how it has guided Singapore transformation into a sustainable, resilient, and livable city for its inhabitants. Now, we support our economy by providing sufficient land in the city area, in the central, for business, tourism. We also have land for the industries in the west, and we start to disseminate our activities beyond the center CBD in the south. So, for example, this is Marina Bay. You all know Marina Bay is our main city now. It's a seamless extension of our central CBD into Marina Bay, and you have shifted even our financial center to Marina Bay. This did not happen by chance. In 1970s, because of the long-term plan, we decided then that Singapore at this time would not have sufficient land for our CBD. So we reclaimed 372 hectares of land in Marina. And so we're very lucky now. Unlike Hong Kong, they don't have land for many, except for scattered lands. We have a whole piece of land here to guide us for the next 20 years of development in the city. But we are not sitting on laurel. Like I said, long-term plan, we look at next 50 years. So this is the Greater Southern Waterfront. And for this, we are looking at the next 50 years because we're going to move the port facilities to the west and free all the land here. And that will give us a chance to build an inclusive and walkable harbourfront district. Well, aside from supporting our economy, we also need to provide a good quality living environment. We need to look forward to provide new varieties of housing options all over the island itself. And we also need to provide amenities, religious buildings, community buildings, schools. As for housing, we provide public housing. 81% of Singapore population lives in public housing. And of course, for the private housing, we need to satisfy the needs of all different strata of people. So you have public housing, private condominiums, all the way down to, on the right itself, landed properties. So we satisfy everyone. We also provide good total living environments with all the necessary amenities. Now, besides development, it's also very important to remember that your built heritage, that built heritage differentiates you, city, identity from any other city. They don't want to come to your city just to look at new buildings, it's everywhere, but the heritage. So although we're very small, we manage to conserve more than 7,000 buildings and 100 area for conservation. Next, I would like to go a bit more in-depth on the topic of greenery, which is today's Green Conference. Now, Singapore has a tradition of greening. You know, 5 decades ago, we had already been branded Garden City. And we evolved from Garden City 5 decades ago into the recent decade, City in the Garden. And going forward, we are going to up our ante one level. Our vision is to make Singapore a city in nature. And that's why Singapore Pavilion reflects the city in nature. If you can see, a little replica of tropical landscape in Singapore. So if you look at this aerial photo, that is in 1986, and that greenery is, but 20 years later, we are greener. 40% of Singapore land is covered by green. Although the population has grown by 70%, it seems impossible, but with proper planning, that is easy for us to achieve. Now, climate change is an important issue that impacts each and every one of us. So we have recently launched the Singapore Green Plan to address climate change. And within this green plan, we have 5 key pillars. And one is, of course, city in nature, which I will talk more today, sustainable living, energy reset, green economy, and resilient future. So all these will address practically every aspect of living in Singapore. So under the city in nature, we plan to develop more than 130 hectares of new parks and enhance another 170 hectares of existing park. We plan to plant another 1 million trees across Singapore, and we plan to have every household within 10-minute walk to a park, wherever you are in Singapore. And we plan also to increase the nature's land area by more than 50%. So that's our target, and we are actually ready to achieve that in 2030. Now, in planning our green and blue spaces in Singapore, we work very closely with many of our counterparts, our sisters statutory board, especially National Park Board, which is in charge of the green, and in order to achieve our vision of a city in nature. So this city in nature is achieved through nature conservation, restoring nature into the urban landscape, enhancing climate resilience. So as I said before, we work very closely with National Park Board, and we take a very science-based approach in identifying and prioritizing green areas to retain, because we are very small, so it's very important for us to be critical. And therefore, we come out with the Nature Conservation Master Plan, which you see on the screen now, and that will guide us in intensifying the green efforts in biodiversity conservation through 4 thrusts: conservation of habits, habitat enhancement, restoration, and species recovery, science-based approach to conservation through research and involving the community. So to retain our natural area, we have worked together to gazette 4 nature reserves, which are representative of our key local ecosystem. We have identified areas with significant biodiversity and established more than 350 hectares, with additional 200 hectares by 2030 of biodiversity site and other forested area as nature park. And we also facilitate the extension of our natural capital through nature park network. If we do develop in sensitive area environmentally, we will apply our environmental impact assessment framework just to make sure that we don't leave things to chance and it has carefully studied the site development, and also necessary mitigation measures have to be put in place. So where the housing areas are, we have town parks, neighborhood parks, precinct green, rooftop greens, and by 2030, 100% of our home will be within 10 minutes walk, like I said earlier. And in 10 to 15 years, 1,000 more hectares land will be set aside for green spaces like parks and park connectors. So we are putting in more efforts to introduce nature through urban greenery, naturalized planting in parks, not as what we earlier known as city in the park. When you are city in the garden, it's like manicured city when you talk about garden. But city in vision is to make it more natural. It's like part of the forest into your city fabric. So that is the main difference that we are going forward. We are moving one level higher. And of course, many of the nature way, which forests like multi-tiered planting along our road. It's not just simple monogamous kind of tree, but various trees that looks really like a natural forest. We are also implementing more island-wide park connectors. So what are park connectors? Park connectors are, like the name implies, it connects from parks to parks to parks, to coastal area, to water and green areas. Now, if you are living in a neighborhood with one neighborhood park, you're only restricted to enjoy that little neighborhood park. However, because we are so small, if you start to link all the park together, you go beyond that little park in your housing. You can go around the whole island if you have to. And to date, we have already achieved 340 kilometers of park connectors. And going forward, we will be getting up to 500 kilometers of park connectors by 2030. And by then, we also will have a round island route of 150 kilometers in the whole island. By then, we wish to invite all of you to come to Singapore and truly do a cross-country 3.5 marathons. Because don't forget, Singapore is also a country. You can't do a cross-country in US or in many of the Europe, but you can do that in Singapore. So we actually capitalize on our smallness and on our tropicalness. Just let me share one example of restoring nature into our urban landscape. This is the beautiful southern reaches where the famous Mount Faber is, right? During the during the colonial time, the British cut the southern regions by two roads, Henderson Road and Alexander Road. So the southern regions are all disconnected. So in early 2000s, we called international competition and we managed to have Henderson Wave and Alexandra Bridge as well as the Forest Walk. And now the whole place is linked all the way to our national universities. I think about 33 kilometers you can walk at one go. This is Forest Walk. This is 1.6 kilometers elevated walkway above the dense secondary forest in Singapore. If you visit us tomorrow in Singapore Pavilion, you are also enjoying the canopy walk above the trees. But it's a very small version compared to what we have in Singapore. Now, in 2009, we realized that it's very important to green the whole island. So we have what we call a LUSH program, LUSH, Landscaping for Urban Spaces and High-Rise. And that way, when you develop a site, minimally, you must develop the site area that is of green at ground level or at vertical green. So to date, architects are pushing the boundary. We have one hotel known as Oasia Hotel in Singapore that is 1,000%, which means the green in the building itself is 10 times the area of the site. So we're pushing many, many different boundaries. So since its inception, from 2009 until 2020, we have achieved 250 hectares of green vertically within the fabric of Singapore, and that is a no mean feat, and that is equivalent to 465 football fields. Like I said earlier, it's very important for us to enhance climate resilience. So we must be ready for climate change on urban life. So we have to start protecting our coastline. We have to mitigate flood risk. We have to ensure thermal comfort, and we have to strengthen food security. So all these, we have a small representation at the Singapore Pavilion. So I'm going to just talk a little bit of Singapore Pavilion, which you will witness tomorrow as you go along. So Singapore Pavilion at the Expo, the theme is Nature, Nurture, Future. Nature, by virtue of the sheer greeneries, biophilic plants, and architecture, it reflects our vision of becoming a city in nature. And nurture, it's really the collective mindset behind that can maintain the precious balance between ecology, urbanization, and people. And of course, future is very important because that means the importance of forward thinking, forward looking, so that you will understand tomorrow's challenges and prepare for the next generation. So that is the story theme for our the Singapore Pavilion. So the Singapore Pavilion is designed to be a very open, naturally ventilated pavilion with multi-layered greens all over the place. 3 years ago, I came here to start looking for trees, grow them in nursery for 3 years. It's not immediate kind of thing. And then we transfer them to the two side boundaries just to make sure that the trees here grow very well to provide shade for us. So we have 3 thematic themes: the rainforest cone, the city cone, as well as a flower cone. And visitors are linked to all these thematic cones by what we call the canopy walk. So we welcome all visitors to relax in a tropical garden within unlikely desert conditions. All right? And many of the visitors, at the end of which, they thank us very much because they say this is the biggest tropical garden they have been to in the whole region, including here in UAE. We have created a pavilion that is soft, breathing, and a non-building. So what you see is basically a lot of green. You'll be greeted by what we call a phytoremediation pond right at the front. That pond helps the plants to purify the pond naturally so that we do not use a lot of energy-intensive water treatment plants. So a lot of smart technology has been put in place in the Singapore Pavilion. And we have over 80,000 plants in this small area of 1,550 square meters and over 170 species of plant. So, we have big trees, small trees, medium trees, verben shrubs, vertical greening that clad the 3 thematic cones. These 45,000 pots that clad the 3 thematic cones, 60% of them are of ethnobotanic values. What does that mean? It means 60% of the plants there are either edible or of medicinal value. Now, this is a clue towards future food resilience in verticality in Singapore, especially because we are very small. In fact, just for your information, we have just harvested the rice, paddy, in a vertical green farm in Singapore last month, the very first experiment. So the 3 different cones, on your left is the rainforest cone. So as the name implies, all the plants there are from Singapore rainforest, all right? And we have a kinetic structure that is a wind seat of dipterocarp trees. In Singapore, 80% of the secondary forest is made up of trees known as dipterocarp. And it grows as tall as 300 feet. So these giant trees, the seeds are called, the wind seeds is an example over there. It's only about that size. So when it's ripe, it will regenerate by spinning like a helicopter and spread itself over the whole forest to regenerate. That's the beauty of nature. And the seeds are actually also food for biodiversity, the animals in the forest. In the middle cone is the city cone. The city cone itself is only a 3-minute special video to show that how our natural environment has been increasingly been threatened by urbanization, city development, industrialization, pollutions, as well as natural disaster. Last year was the worst natural disaster in many, many years, right? And so the main takeaway for that city cone is that you can develop and coexist with nature. You don't have to destroy nature just to do your development. So that's a very key message. We hope everyone will take away the message and take charge that embrace nature, and it's very important. And of course, on the right is our flower cone. The name implies it's flowers. It's our beautiful orchids. We have more than 50 species of orchids in the flower cone. And also there are 4 terrariums. Terrarium is just to show the process of hybridization, which is a key process in Singapore Botanic Garden for orchids. We produce many hybrids and name them after visiting head of states, countries, prime ministers. For example, in March 2017, Her Royal Highness, the Mother of Nation, Her Royal Highness Sheikha Fatimah bin Mubarak, visited Singapore, and we have a beautiful pinkish, purplish flower known as Dendrobium Sheikha Fatimah bin Mubarak, named after her. And on the 22nd of January this year, Singapore celebrated our National Day at the Expo. And our senior minister came and we unveiled a new hybrid orchid named Dendrobium Expo 2020 Dubai. And the color is vibrant yellow with purplish vein, and it reflects the color of the logo, the Expo logo. And this is really to salute UAE for being so resilient and for bringing more than 192 countries together, connecting minds and creating the future. It's our salute to that. So the orchid is meant a memory that the greatest show on earth, which is about to end at the end of this month. I want to share with you this, maybe on site I'll share with you. Nature begets biodiversity. So before we open on the 1st October, actually, our first visitors are the biodiversities. We have a pair of lovebirds called the laughing dove, came over, laid 2 eggs, and produced 2 chicks, and they fly away. And after that, more came, and now we're more than 4 bird nests over there. And on the right, you can see a beautiful dragonfly. So this endorsement by the wildlife is the greatest compliment and endorsement of the sustainability narrative of the built environment coexisting in harmony with nature. Now, Singapore Pavilion is also designed not just because it's green, because of greenery, but green in the sense of sustainability. We are net zero energy, and we do a lot of regenerative design. So we have 517 solar panels on the roof that will give us sufficient electrical energy to power the whole pavilion over the next 6 months. And we're aided by 18 sun pipes and grow lights to ensure that the plants thrive well in the pavilion itself. More than that, we also have enough energy to desalinate in the basement the water that we extract directly below the level. That's because Dewa won't allow us to use their water to water the plants, and we've got 80,000 plants. So we desalinate the plants and self-sufficient in energy and in water. We also have a system of dry mist. Can you see the dry mist fan? Tomorrow you will feel it. It is specially designed So much so that the Crown Prince of Dubai, Sheikh Hamdan, when he visited us, he said he wanted the dry mist for his stable of horses so that his horses become more comfortable. All right, we have 51 number of dry mist scattered, and the dry mist, together with the green, managed to reduce the temperature inside the pavilion by 6 to 10 degrees compared to outside. So tomorrow, when you come, you feel the heat, and when you come inside, you'll feel there is a difference. So overall, our pavilion is a microcosm of Singapore, mirroring Singapore's efforts to become a resilient, sustainable, and livable city. But more importantly, we're also aligned with the UN Sustainable Development Goal 3, 6, 7, 9, 11, 12, and 13. So to conclude my presentation, I would like to highlight the key trend towards the future. Despite all that we have done, it is imperative that we do not sit on our laurels. There are some key trends as we focus and look forward to Singapore for future. First, we need to promote active mobility, more people to cycle and to walk, right? We also prioritize a lot of car-light districts so that the less car and more people walking and exercising. We also use a lot of data analytics and geospatial technologies. And because they're very small, we have gone underground. We have a master plan of Singapore in the whole underground. In fact, a couple of years ago, Jurong Cavern is the very first one that we opened 130 meter deep, and we start to store all the oil, and all those big cans on the surface are all removed, and then we can claw back the land for our use. And that is what we're happening. We are going underground also, and we are doing a lot of key growth areas. So as the world gradually recovers from pandemic, there are some of the emerging issues moving forward. So we are very small, we can't do too much, but together with all of you, we can do a lot. And with United Nations, for example, there is this future global trend of climate resilience as ever, new social spaces after the pandemic, closer to nature, which I always emphasize in Singapore, because Singapore is one of the greenest cities in the world now. And new housing needs, which is important. Many people are without proper housing. And of course, new technologies. So you do know, like in our pavilion itself, we managed to survive for 6 months, a green oasis, a tropical green garden within an unlikely desert conditions, right? So if we can do that, what does it mean? It means that with integration of nature, architecture, and smart technology, you can practically create any city of the future that is sustainable, resilient, and livable anywhere on Earth. You just have to integrate all the factors that makes it work. So before I end my presentation, I would like to leave you with some parting thoughts from some members of the Global Built Environment fraternity on the way moving forward post-pandemic. Well, thank you very much, and I look forward to host all of you tomorrow. Thank you.
Okay, well, I used to want to visit Singapore, but now I think I just want to move there. That's amazing. I can't wait till tomorrow to see the pavilion. Do we have any questions for Larry while we've got him? Come on up to the mic and ask away. Hopefully it's working.
Hi, thank you for a very intriguing presentation. I visited the pavilion, but it's different when you hear it from those who were the creators of the space. Thank you. So my question, you highlighted key factor for making this vision happening. In this process or the journey of the making, where is the community and what is the role that they play to make this happen? Because architecture, technology, and vision requires a community to be on board. Thank you.
Yeah, try it. Can we get this mic on?
Can you get this mic on, please? Hello. Yes. Thank you very much. I actually should have touched on that one because of limited time. It's a very good question. You are correct. But you remember when I talked of the theme as nature, nurture, and future, I mentioned about nurture is the collective mindset behind that maintain the precious balance between ecology, urbanization, and people. Yes, our process in Singapore is to work with the whole communities. So, for example, we started this program called Community in Bloom. That means spaces between two blocks of green area, we allow the community to draw some space and build their own gardens, vegetables, and all that. We started just a few years ago, and now we have more than 1,000 community in bloom gardens. We are also working with the whole community because it's important. Once we are very successful in our greening, what does it mean? We will have more biodiversities. In fact, just not too long ago, we have the smooth-coated otters now, big population in Singapore waterways. The hornbill that was once known to be almost extinct is full of hornbill all over Singapore now, and mouse deers. So we have to work with the community to make sure they also adopt the wildlife, nature, so that human and wildlife can work together. So it is recently showing a bit of success because the otter, although otters, if you go and disturb them, they can actually bite you and things like that. But it is really working very well together. Yes, you're correct. That is a very important process involving the community.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Come on up to the mic. Well, he's coming up, Larry. I have a question because you're talking to a group of growers. Does Singapore have its own nursery, or do you buy from all over? You're talking about a lot of plants that you're planting and everything. What's the process for coming up with the plant material?
Yes. Not only we have nurseries, we also have, I think, 4% of the land devoted to agriculture. Because although we are very small, the actually green land area, we do have farmers in many different ways. But the more important thing is that we have to promote food resilience through vertical greening. So many of our multi-story car parks in Singapore that facilitates people living in the public housing are turned into urban green farm. So in the whole of Singapore, now you see more and more of this urban greening. And a lot of young people, you'll be surprised. All this young generation, they are the one that march like a hero, and they all want to be forward-looking and involved in urban farming. Yes, we do. Thank you for the questions.
Okay.
Hi, this is Bülent. I'm from Expo. I'm the man after all the plantation site-wide in Expo. And we met before in one of the conference. I visited the pavilion. It's really beautiful, the vertical gardens.
Hey, thank you.
In terms of the maintenance cost must be really high. So how it's profitable or sustainable in terms of to keep them alive?
So it is important, first of all, like you said, we need to integrate smart technologies. So to keep the health of the plant, what do you need? You need sunlight, actually. So we have 18 sun pipes. They are sun pipes, not electrical lighting. They pipe the sun directly into the cones and inside. And we also have many grow lights. Grow lights are special lights, purplish, greenish. After 5 o'clock, we will switch on the grow light because the grow light will help the plant to synthesize and to thrive. And that's the reason why it's growing very well. Also, partly for water, we automate them because we have drip irrigation. After we have desalinated the water, water is pumped into all the drip irrigation, so we don't need labor manual. So it is not, you need to really plan carefully. That's why I say it's not just nature itself. You need to integrate nature, architecture, regenerative design, as well as smart technology. So we do not have a lot of maintenance costs involved because we rely on the natural process.
I mean, you can do it in the in this scale, but how do you do in this city scale that you showed on the presentation? It's on a big scale.
Oh, for example, we talk about solar power, right? Solar energy. Now we are covering the whole reservoir with solar panels. So that is an example of how we have implemented. And that energy that's harvested from this solar panel on the reservoir can actually supply to whole housing town per se. So we are doing that. And we are in the process of making all the housing development block flats, public housing flats, on the roof to put solar panels island-wide. So we do big scale. What you see tomorrow in Singapore, it's only a microcosm of what Singapore is, tropical landscape. And when you come to Singapore, and we like to invite all of you to Singapore, you will see the scales 10 times or 100 times bigger.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Larry. I'm going to, Audrey, you have a quick one?
We have a question from one of our online viewers, if I may. Question being, how is the population of Singapore being engaged with your impressive program of city greening? Are local communities taking their own initiatives?
Yes, because in Singapore, we are also divided into different constituencies, and we have our members of parliament in charge of each area. So everyone is given their independence on how they engage. But at the national level, the MPARTs, we have our programs, all right, to continuously engage different segments of the people. And it's very interesting that when people see some success by piloting, after that, they also wish to be involved. Actually, in some of the main parks now, we have built different plots of lands inside. It's a very modular one. And many of the families just come and lease it, and so that they can plant their own vegetables. So they start small, and after that, they grow even bigger. Yes, we have many, many different ways of engaging the population.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Larry.
Thank you.
Okay, I know we're running a little bit behind, but we started a little bit late, and I'm not going to worry about time till I get told to worry about time. Our next speaker is Pablo Lopez Guijosa. Pablo holds a Master's of Environmental Management degree by the University of Queensland, Australia, and a biologist degree by the National Autonomous University of Mexico and the University of Helsinki. His expertise is in the international relations, specializing in communications, protected areas, and biodiversity conservation. He has worked with sub-national governments, academia, private sector, and NGOs, as well as international organizations, including the Ramsar Convention Secretariat and the Geneva Environmental Network in Switzerland. He helped organize the UN Biodiversity Conference, COP13 CBD in Cancun, Mexico, the Ramsar COP13 in Dubai, as well as several international meetings. His topic covers the relationship between global biodiversity conservation targets and local biodiversity plans. So I'm looking forward to Pablo's presentation. It's all yours, Pablo.
Okay, so hello, good afternoon to everyone. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are currently watching online. So my name is Pablo, and I am here today to present an article published already, which is on local actions, from local actions to global targets. I'm here representing the Urban Biodiversity Hub, or UB Hub, and we are a volunteer-based organization which helps cities to measure and promote their biodiversity and their biodiversity actions. We work with governments, subnational governments, municipalities, and to improve the efficiency and the effectiveness of the work that they do in terms of biodiversity. We do this by consolidating information on their biodiversity actions in our website, which is ophub.org. And yeah, so today I'm going to be talking about some topics that might be new for you. I don't know. So I will start from the very beginning. How does this research come to be what it is, and how it gets related to the work that the AIPH is doing. So you all might know about, you all might heard about the Paris Agreement on climate change, which is by the UN CCC, that's how we call it, in the United Nations. However, there is a sister convention to the UNFCCC, which is the Convention on Biological Diversity. This is a global decision-making space for biodiversity. And under this convention, in 2010, there were 20 targets called Aichi targets for biodiversity, which were part of the strategic plan for biodiversity of the United Nations. So just to give a little bit of context, we have the Aichi Target 7, which focuses on agriculture as well as forestry. And then we have amongst all the Aichi targets, we also have the Target 14, which actually focuses on greening cities. So yeah, just like the Millennium Development Goals expired already, and then they were replaced by the Sustainable Development Goals, the Aichi biodiversity targets were planned to expire in 2020. So that was 2 years ago, and the United Nations is developing now something called the Post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework, which is going to be the continuation of the Aichi targets, but because most of the targets were not met, actually they were not met, now the new Post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework aims to be something bigger, something that would include not just biodiversity, but all United Nations, all the things that they do in terms of economics, development, peace, justice, humanitarian, etc. This post-2020 is going to be discussed next week in Geneva, in Switzerland, and it's going to be adopted in China next year. This year. We still don't have a date, but it's going to be adopted. So now I'm going to talk about, now that you have this context, I'm going to talk about the article that we wrote, which is called Scaling Biodiversity Conservation Efforts, an examination of the relationships between the global biodiversity targets and the local action plans. And by the way, I just wanted to highlight that our research is being part of the official resources for these negotiations that are going to happen in Geneva next week. So what was our research aim was to inform this global biodiversity target setting about the local actions that we're taking for biodiversity. So we wanted to compare how they aligned, and yeah, we have the research questions. For example, which Aichi biodiversity targets are commonly addressed in the local action, in the local plans for biodiversity? Then, how are cities addressing these themes, the themes of the Aichi targets of all the 20? We made the analysis for all the 20 targets, and what actions are cities including in local biodiversity plans that are not captured in the Aichi targets? Well, that were not captured then. So, well, the idea for this is that we can inform the new post-2020 global biodiversity framework so we don't make the same mistakes that happened with previous negotiations. So the methodology, as I mentioned before, in Urban Biodiversity Hub, we have the local biodiversity plans for multiple countries and cities. So we have 113 cities in the well, we had at that time when we started this research in our database, and we sampled the largest 44 cities that had local biodiversity plans. And when countries had more than 2 cities, then we chose the one with the biggest population, with the largest population. So here you can see an example of all the cities that we on which we made the research. So you can see that there is a wide geographic representation. Then from these plans, we extracted more than 2,800 actions, objectives, targets, and outputs from the local biodiversity action plans. And then we coded these actions according to the 20 Aichi targets. And then, of course, we found out that there were some actions that did not have any relationship. So in the end, we ended up with 126 subcategories. And yeah, we adapted them. The global themes, we adapted them to the local scale. So this is the main image from our results, well, one of the main images, in which you can see in green you have in green are the national biodiversity plans, and in blue you have the local biodiversity plans. And for each target you can see the relationship. So maybe this image is not very, well, it could be bigger, but you can have an idea on how there are some targets, for example, in the middle with, I think it's Aichi target 10, in which it only has national actions and not local actions. Whereas we also have some other targets, for example, Aichi target 19, which is knowledge improved, shared and applied. It had 93% of the actions were part of the local scale. So here in this one, well, if you read this research, you can have a little bit more of information about each of the targets, which we find out to be more important. And then, of course, there is all the data. If you like to go deeper, we have all the coding and everything, so you can see how it was done. But something interesting to notice, as I said before, is that Aichi target 1 and Aichi target 19 were one of the most widely recognized in the local biodiversity action plans. But then we also have the Aichi target 15, which is ecosystem restored and resilience enhanced. And there we have, well, here in the right you can see the keywords that we use to search in all of the action plans that we analyzed. So you can also see for the Aichi target 7, I don't know if I can point, but it should be in the first ones. So there you can also see that for the Aichi target 7, we saw local agriculture, community gardening, and greening of the cities as well. And then another very interesting thing that we found is that there were a lot of other sub-themes that were identified in these local biodiversity action plans, but they were not related to any themes of the Aichi targets. So that was also something that captured our attention, because you have external cooperation, regulations and enforcement, transportation, administration, staff, so some things that are more focused towards a local scale. So without going any deeper into each of the targets or anything, we had some observations, for example, in the effectiveness. So and we wanted to share this here in this forum with the AIPH. One is the effectiveness. So we wanted to see, well, to highlight how greening initiatives had achieved their stated goals or are on the way to achieving them. The second one is replicability or transferability, in which we want to know which lessons can be learned from this research and from the alignment or misalignments that we found in the Aichi targets. Oops, sorry. And finally, the significance of the greening initiatives in addressing other problems and societal needs, which can be included also in the Sustainable Development Goals. Well, what are the implications from this research? Is that the role of cities, well, according to the Aichi targets that we measured, that we compared, there is the role that cities play is, and that is not always necessarily into the biodiversity targets, whereas the partnerships, and also that the cities are the economic centers, usually all around the world. And then for the post-2020 framework, we also what we want to achieve with this one is to not make the same mistakes as I mentioned before. There are also opportunities for support in terms of funding, resources, capacity building, and also in the end, cities are also biodiversity hubs. So the next step that we want to achieve with this research is we're going to develop a policy brief. We're organizing a workshop next week, actually, in Geneva. It's supported by Natura Network, and it's going to be presented in these meetings of the Convention of the Biological Diversity, which are happening in parallel with our workshop. So if you would like to have more information, if you would like to go deeper into this, into any of these topics, then you can find the article. You can write to us. Everything is in our website and on our email. And well, just some final thoughts that we had is that in terms of restorations, well, there is going to be a lot of need for restorations in this new post-2020 global biodiversity framework, and cities play an important role in restoration, especially, well, in greening the cities. So yeah, I think that would be it from now. So if you have any questions or you would like to go deeper, I'm happy to take questions.
So, do we have any questions for Pablo? I had a bunch the other night, but you answered them all. But one of the questions I think we asked that maybe could use some clarification is the cities that participated. How did you get them to participate?
Well, in Urban Biodiversity Hub, we create partnership with them. So actually, not all of them know. We don't have contact with all of them. The information is public. All the local biodiversity action plans, they can be found on their website. And what we're doing at Urban Biodiversity Hub is we try to get them all. We look for them, and then we incorporate them, put them together in our database. So once we had that database, we stopped the. In order for us to make this research, we decided, okay, let's stop at this point in time. We had 144 cities, and then from there we started making the analysis in terms of population.
Perfect. One of the things that I appreciated is in that list of action items, the number of things that cross over into our sector was quite amazing.
Yeah.
So, okay, if there's nothing else for Pablo. Okay. So next up, we have another video from another one of our sponsors, Suncheon International Garden Expo.
Have you ever seen the children embraced by a garden? The lawn becomes their playground, and the leaves their toys. The Suncheon National Garden becomes the playground for children. By meeting gardens, children assure to be the protectors of the garden. In this way, Suncheon National Garden has become a place of learning for the children and the pride of Suncheon. The Suncheon International Garden Expo 2013 was the seed that plants nature in Suncheon. And that seed sprouts and grows well, and becomes a city that thinks first about the coexistence between nature and human being. Grains are shared with migratory birds that come to Suncheon each year, and we believe that time spent cultivating flowers and trees will become a signpost of life. The Suncheon International Garden Expo 2013 was a moment when the value of that belief was in full bloom. Suncheon embarks on another challenge. Urban nature becomes a garden, and gardens become a way of life for residents. Suncheon dreams of the exhibition to be every little part of Suncheon. Bonghwasan and Haeryongsan mountains that embrace Dongcheon River, the lifeline of Suncheon. A garden in a village, a place for neighbors to communicate and gather people together. Suncheonman National Garden crosses the city and the wetlands, and stream becomes a place to rest for residents. Gyeolyang Hwapo and Haeryongwaon embraces Suncheon in scenery that includes beautiful sunrises and sunsets. And the Suncheonman National Garden, the prominent ecotourism site in Korea that brings 5 million visitors annually. Suncheon's forests, villages, wetlands, coasts, and national gardens now become a new garden and follow up the value to the International Garden Expo. Suncheon becomes the path that connects nature and villages, and people with people. To accomplish this, we continue to cultivate our gardens and organize public-private governance for preserving it. Residents will plan the gardens that they can be left leave to those in our village and our region. Some may ask Suncheon, what is so big deal about planting flowers and watering trees? But here's our answer. Planting and cultivating flowers is planting the abundance to our everyday lives. And going one step further, it passes on the value of the environment to future generations. Gardens in residents' lives. Gardens in everyday life. Gardens that nurture the future generations. Suncheon is a happy city of character, personality, and health with unlimited future possibility. We create it together with the citizens and the nature of Suncheon.
Thank you. We're going to take a break soon, but our president asked for the stage.
Sorry to disrupt your program, Bill, but I will draw your attention to something very important. And it has been mentioned this afternoon a couple of times, and it is all about today's date, the 8th of March. And within AIPH, we are used to speak and to share that AIPH is the world champion for the power of plants, and we all know the power of nature, but I would like to share, to draw attention to the power of women, the power of our women and the women present today. So, Jack, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Bernard. Well, as mentioned, it's International Women's Day today, but International Women's Day has a different meaning in different parts of the world. As mentioned today, it's about women's rights, it's about women equality, but in Eastern Europe, it's something quite different. It's about men showing their appreciation towards women who are important to them. And they do that by giving them flowers. Chrysanthemum is the flower of choice, but also rose are equally important. But however you look at it, it's, I think, about making a connection between people, sharing ideas and getting in touch with each other. But also, obviously, as chair of the Dutch Flower Auction, the flower giving is important for me and for our growers as well. And therefore, I think it's important to carry on this tradition also here, and to do that by actually handing out the flowers to the women present here today, as a token of our appreciation, but also as an invitation for us to work together to make this world a greener place. And I would like to ask my colleagues at the board of AIPH to help me and hand over these beautiful flowers to all the beautiful ladies here in the room. Thank you.
So We'll get going again. Our next speaker is actually AIPH Secretary General Timm Briercliffe. Timm will be presenting on stimulating greener cities with international horticultural expositions. So Timm, I'll give it to you.
Well, good afternoon. It's really great to be able to speak with you today. And as you know, in AIPH, at our heart is a desire to make people's lives better through plants. We are the world's champion for the power of plants. And so we want to make cities greener because we believe that is better for the environment, better for our climate, better for the future of our world, better for the people that live in cities. And so greener cities, they matter. They matter to us because they matter to you, because they matter to our children, because they matter to every generation that will follow. And we believe that we are part of something big, something that really matters and matters significantly. And all of the information we hear, whether it's from the United Nations, from governments, from all kinds of bodies, it points to the same fact that our world has to tackle the challenges that we are facing, the environmental problems that are facing our world. And we have to live in this world and live in cities. Now, we may not be able, through our industry alone, to reverse the process of climate change. But what we can do is make it possible to live in a changing climate world. And through making cities greener, it means that lives can be healthier and more enjoyable in a changing world. And we see our role fitting very firmly in this area. Now, our other role of approving international horticultural exhibitions gives us the opportunity to create showcases and examples of what a green city can be, what it needs to be, and to inspire people in their individual lives, to inspire cities and businesses and organizations around the globe to make the difference. That is why they matter. So I want to give you a bit of an introduction to AIPH approved expos, and to start with that, we want to go and take you there to see them, and I can't do that, so we have to do it by video, so we've got a video to show you now.
AIPH is the International Association of Horticultural Producers, and our mission is to be the world's champion for the power of plants. As our planet becomes increasingly urbanized, so environmental, health, and economic challenges intensify. For a world facing the challenges of climate change, there has never been a time when living green has been so important. Hosting an international horticultural exhibition gives the opportunity for your city to lead the world in creating greener cities for the future.
For a city to host an international horticultural exhibition is an amazing opportunity for them to position themselves on the world stage, so that everybody will be able to recognize that this city is a green city through the inspirational use of plants, of flowers and trees. The creation of an amazing expo park will attract many, many tourists and visitors, and it will attract participants from around the world. And in the long run, it will also encourage more people to live in that city, it will encourage businesses to invest in that city, and it will define that city as a city focused on green development long into the future.
Hosting an international horticultural exhibition creates greener cities that become the pride of a nation and the envy of the world. International expos provide education, entertainment, and inspiration, while at the same time creating a beautiful park and an enduring green legacy for the future. Lasting up to 6 months and covering areas from 25 to 500 hectares, an expo creates gardens, pavilions, events, and attractions that will delight visitors. Expos in Europe typically attract 2 to 4 million visitors, and expos in Asia, like Expo 2019 Beijing, can reach up to 10 million. Each expo has its own theme. The city of Taichung attracted over 7 million visitors to its 2018 Expo with the theme of rediscovering green, nature and people. And Expo 2016 Antalya in Turkey concentrated on a green future for our children. Making the exhibition international also makes it very special. AIPH approval means you can invite participants from all over the world. The participants construct gardens and pavilions that show their culture, food, technologies and plants to the visitors. The result is a celebration of horticulture from around the world, with all the cultural, trade and innovation benefits that come with it. AIPH is proud to have approved and supported more than 40 international horticultural exhibitions since 1960. We work closely with organisers to help them succeed and ensure high standards for the Expo. As an international rights-holding body, we have the authority to grant approval, after which we closely monitor Expo development. The decision to host an Expo requires vision and investment. It requires passion and dedication, but the results can be simply amazing. Why not join us and champion the power of plants with your own International Horticultural Expo? Make your city stand out on the world stage, redefine what you are about, and create a magnificent expo that will energize citizens through the event and long into the future.
Okay, I'm going to move through my slides quite quickly. We're overrunning a bit. I'm the one who's going to take most of the hit. So we have been approving expos for 60 years, celebrating green. And we believe, our aim is that the International Horticultural Expos will become the only global sustainability property out there in the events market. We are there to promote plants, but we are there to promote the education of the public on living green, to inspire people to use plants and the landscape in the best way, and in order to have the benefits that it can have for their cities. And we do that by regulating and creating policies and monitoring the way in which these expos are developed to be the examples for the future they need to be. Just so we're clear, and I know that we're in the middle of a BIE-approved World Expo here, just so everyone understands the different categories of expo that we have. We have the A1 World Horticultural Exhibition category, which is an exhibition that can last for 3 to 6 months. It also has the recognition of the BIE, and this one is one that is approved at national government level and facilitates the invitation of countries through national diplomatic channels. The B International Horticultural Exhibition can be of the same size and quality, but it's not involving the national government, is more at a city level, making international connections between cities. The C Expos are shorter events, such as the Euroflora that we have coming up in Genoa in Italy, and the D exhibitions are trade exhibitions. So they're just different kind of events. It's not an order of importance. They're different in how they operate. We talked about the number of visitors, and these were visitor numbers that we've had in recent exhibitions that we've had over the last few years. And expos bring many benefits. We talk about the importance of spreading the message of environmental benefits and tackling the challenges of our world, but also expos can bring a commercial benefit, an economic benefit to cities. And if you want to know more about that, we've done detailed research to show that. Through the publication of Blooming Economies on our website, you can see how that an expo will bring a significant return on investment to your city through hosting it, both short and long term. It's really important that an expo has a legacy. And I think it was Mr. Nasser at the beginning who talked about the importance of that an Expo, even more important than the Expo, is what it leaves behind and how it is into the future. And we completely believe in that. By creating an Expo, you are, in a horticultural Expo, you're creating a park, a beautiful place, which will have a benefit into the future. And so the thinking on how that will be used must be incorporated at the very beginning of the Expo to create something which will go on to deliver benefits into the future. Our Green City programme is fundamental to what we're doing in AIPH, and it is now intertwined with our work on approving international horticultural exhibitions. And we run conferences like this one, and we are looking to develop standards of Green City across the world to bring cities together, to exchange ideas and move forward with this area. Just listening to the presentation from Singapore shows what can be achieved, and this is exactly the kind of inspiration we're trying to generate through these events. Online we have guidelines which will give practical examples of how to implement greening in the city. And we have our World Green City Awards that Bill referred to, and in these awards, which close on the 14th of March, cities from around the world will be entering and they will be assessed by a jury, and in September we will announce the winners and cities will be able to proclaim themselves as winners of the AIPH Green City Awards. Please get involved in this and be part of this journey in spreading that message. To do it, we've partnered with many major city organisations, including the Cities of Nature organisation, part of ICLEI Group, and many of these which are biophilic cities and other organisations which are well connected. And we find that these organisations quickly jump on to support our ambition because it aligns so well with what needs to happen in the world today. AIPH is committed to sustainability. We've developed over the last 2 years a very clear policy and strategy and how we're going to implement it. We believe that we will directly impact 5 of the UN SDGs through the work that we are doing. And we're not only saying it, we're going to do it and monitor it and report on how well we're getting on in it. We've identified a number of key themes within that where we are going to make a difference. And this is stretching my eyesight a little bit, but the climate action and you can read it better than me there. So, and biodiversity and education and awareness, equity and inclusion, sustainable sourcing, all of these areas, we have specific action points within our strategy of how we will implement those to deliver that future. And so our target is to be that our events, our expos, will be recognised as the world's most sustainable major events. We had an amazing presentation yesterday from the head of sustainable operations here at the Expo Dubai, and these are exactly the kind of things we are looking for from the expos in the future, but we have the added advantage that we are creating green events at their heart. So you have many of these events to look forward to in the coming years. This year we're opening 3. Hatay is our next one to open on the 1st of April, and we are excited that after the pandemic we can join with this celebration of green in Hatay in the beginning of April and be part of an expo there. This is followed by the opening of the Floriada in the Netherlands and the Euroflora in Genoa. Next year we have Kahramanmaraş in Turkey, Suncheon in Korea, Doha, Qatar. We have Chengdu in China in 24, Izmir in Turkey in 26, and as of approval from today, we have approved Udon Thani in Thailand, also 26. And then, as far as we're going at the moment, is Yokohama in Japan in 2027. We want you to be part of all of these and to see how we are moving forward in implementing these events to promote sustainability and greening of our cities around the world. We saw from the presentations yesterday that many of these expos are looking to for the expo to be at the heart of a movement of greening through their cities. And just like we saw the green corridors connecting parks in Singapore, so the expos do this through the cities that host them. Thank you again to those who have particularly invested in today's event, to Doha, to Hatay, to Suncheon, and we really appreciate this support, showing your own commitment to the importance of green city and the future of our world. Thank you very much for listening.
Okay, do we have any questions for Timm in the audience? The one thing, at least with Timm and the AIPH staff, you know how to get a hold of them. You know where they are. No questions? Oh, there we go. Have one. Come on up to the mic, please.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. Looking at the experience backward and moving forward, what happened with the legacy of most of these expos across the different countries that they had been through this journey?
There are different things. Principally, they have created a park, and very often this park was maybe going to be at the focus of a new city development or residential development, and some have been retained really like they are. There's some good examples in Japan of expo parks. You have Chiang Mai in Thailand as well, which remains as a real beautiful feature in the park. It becomes like an expo park within a city, so providing a green space for people to exercise, for health, and for improving the environment. In some cities, they will change. Some of the buildings will be taken down. Some will be used for other purposes. In Beijing, they have an ongoing plan of city growth in that area, but by having the expo, it means there will always be significant green space and park within that area. Within Tangshan in China in 2016, they redeveloped a former mining area, which was near the center of the city, to create a beautiful park, which has transformed that steel-producing city into one where it's more pleasant to live for the future.
Can I have a follow-up question on this?
Pablo. Yep.
Okay, this is very interesting. How much from these, or how many from these examples, Expo has been designed within the city, not as a dedicated land to develop for Expo, if any?
Yes, so I don't know how many. It's a good question for me to research. I know of both, examples of both.
This happened as an example.
Yes, so for some they might find a site outside the city. For some in the center of the city. The Tangshan example is one which was really near the middle of the city. With Almere in the Netherlands opening this year, that is in the city and is a strategic part of the city development. So the Expo is a transitional phase to, their theme is growing green cities. So they are using it to create a green city of the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, one more, Elena.
You have to worry when your team asks a question.
Yeah.
But the one was not from the team, actually, but from the online viewers. The question was, are the financial benefits of hosting expos available on the website? And if Secretary General allows me to take this question, that will be with pleasure, as I was that person who worked on the publication. So we have analyzed expos since 2006. To get to know what are the financial benefits. Of course, it depends on the amount of investment that was done. But in that publication, you definitely can find this information. And I invite all of you to go there and take a look. Also, we should probably divide between the different possibilities, which are the direct financial benefits and the ripple effects on the economy. So please go ahead with consulting this publication, and we are also sure that we will produce more of those with the next expos to come. Thank you.
That was easy for me, that one.
Okay, seeing nothing else, we will move on. Thank you very much, Timm.
Thank you.
So I have the honor next of introducing a fellow Canadian. Alan White is the owner of Turf Systems based in Burlington, Ontario, which is in the Toronto area. With over 30 years of business experience, Alan truly believes in maintaining and preserving green spaces for all to enjoy. The belief has kept him busy, both in business operating turf systems and representing the Canadian landscape industry. And Alan has represented the Canadian landscape industry very well. He's on the Provincial Board of Landscape Ontario. He's on the executive of the Canadian Nursery and Landscape Association. He's chair of the Climate Change Adaptation Committee. He's on the executive board for Project Evergreen, which is based out of the US. And he's vice chair for the new Green Cities Foundation, which is based in Canada. Today, Alan's going to be talking about connecting plants and people for a greener, healthier urban climate.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much, Bill, for the warm introduction, and to AIPH for inviting me here to participate in today's Green City Conference. It's an exciting time for me to be here at Expo 2020 Dubai, halfway around the world, to present on behalf of the Canadian Nursery and Landscape Association, the Green City Foundation, and Communities in Bloom Canada. My goal over the next 15 to 20 minutes is to share with you the significant amount of work that we've been doing back in Canada that has explored the role plants are playing in managing urban climates and their connection to carbon. I also plan to share with you the exciting project we're about to launch that we believe will better help people connect with plants as it relates to their own landscape's ability to participate in the global climate agenda around carbon and the environment. So let's dive in. It's been well documented about the pressure global carbon emissions are having on our planet. However, it's our cities where we truly are seeing the negative impacts of carbon is having on not just their urban climate, but also the people that call these cities home. The reality is our urban climates are changing at a much more rapid rate than our global environment. Our urban centers are now seeing temperatures increase as much as 12 degrees Celsius warmer than the surrounding suburbs, resulting in poor air quality and extreme weather events. As our population growth expands, so does our infrastructure development, including our buildings, roads, and transportation. Amplifying the amount of CO2 not only being released into the surrounding air mass, but also trapping it along with the heat the cities are generating. It's this trapping of heat and the CO2 that leads to what is commonly known as the greenhouse effect, or the urban heat island. The result of these sometimes drastic environmental changes, unfortunately, has led to a greater loss of life for many, especially those most vulnerable in our population who can't protect themselves from these extremes. The urban climate cycle is fragile. Now with approximately 80% in Canada of our global population now living in our major urban areas, it's important that we better understand this urban climate cycle and the role carbon and water are playing within these ecosystems. As a society, we spend a lot of time measuring, thinking, talking about the right side of this image, where buildings, transportation, and energy are contributing significantly to our urban CO2 emissions, and how as a society we might reduce their output. And while the image also shows the important role our urban forests, wetlands, parks, and private green spaces are playing in balancing out these harmful carbon emissions, it doesn't tell us, however, the whole story, if these nature-based solutions are actually still capable of having any significant success in managing what on the surface seems like a significant imbalance. At the core of this imbalance is plants' natural ability to sequester carbon and produce oxygen, while at the same time storing the carbon it's captured, essentially scrubbing the surrounding air within the heat island of some of its CO2. But how much carbon are our urban plants actually removing? Now, plants also have another unique benefit that contributes significantly to the urban climate cycle. It's their ability to trap water and surface runoff, return it to the soil, where it can be used later to support plant life, while cooling the surrounding air through evapotranspiration, further reducing the urban heat island effect. But again, do we have data to support that what we're doing is enough and having a significant impact on our urban cycle? I know this could be considered an oversimplification of the significant role plants could play in our urban ecosystem, but I'm not sure that we're that far off in our thinking. And to confirm that we're not the only ones thinking this way, I can report just this past year, some of my colleagues here today and myself attended both the CAS 21 Summit in the Netherlands and COP26 in Glasgow, where I heard many world leaders, including our very own Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, express his view the world needs to start looking at our ability to sequester more carbon, as it appears just as important as to how we might also reduce the very carbon we're producing. By looking at both sides of the carbon equation, we may actually find a way out of this crisis and be in a real position to make the biggest contributions yet to climate adaptation and mitigation. So what would this look like in a green city? How many plants would it take to sequester enough CO2 to support an entire city, or even a community, or an individual family? The good news is the Canadian Nursery Landscape Association, in partnership with the University of Guelph in Canada, has been working on this very question for a few years now, and we are very close to launching a tool that would allow an individual homeowner to measure their landscape's ability to sequester enough CO2 to support their family. Again, the idea has been in the works for some time now, and the goal was to keep the tool simple as possible for early adoption, looking primarily at trees, shrubs as an understory, and turf grass as a starting point, and using sequestration values as close as possible to the plant's actual process of sequestering carbon. For the science minds in the room, that is the point of net primary production. Step one was to engage the university in literature review to determine what research existed within the research community around carbon sequestration and around the world, and if there are any gaps in that research. Step two was to apply a consistent methodology to create a closest possible equation or equal set of values that could then be applied to an equal area in any plant material. Step three was then to extract these findings to build a set of equations that would allow us the ability to create a tool that would then marry those calculations with the GIS mapping software that could measure a landscape size from a satellite image, then run a total area through the formulas that were created. They're demonstrating how much carbon the landscape could remove. This simple adding machine calculator versus a scientific function calculator, grouping plants' ability to sequester carbon and contribute to a population's health. As part of that knowledge transfer, we engaged Esri Canada, a leading global GIS relational data developer that utilizes global satellite information that allows the user directly to measure their own landscape's unique ability to contribute positively to the quality of life of others. There's an old saying that if you can't change what you can't measure. Next, we decided that we would communicate these findings directly to the public. We also decided on 4 key metrics. First, to present the landscape's ability to sequester carbon, then quantify how much clean air was being created, how many people would that support, and providing at least one real-world offset that impacts the average person's life. In the case here was how many kilometers driven in an average car. We also decided after considerable discussion that the clean air was more important to an individual than the amount of carbon being sequestered, so we changed the name of the calculator and the tool from the carbon calculator to the clean air calculator, primarily for public consumption. The good news is the math doesn't change, only the way that we present the findings does. Our goal was to further expand the tool's ability to have functionality that will allow the user the ability to also understand the managed landscape inputs, the species variability, and regional variability as well. Here's a quick peek of what that tool is capable of, and as I mentioned, this tool is still in development with launch date expected later this spring. Now, the user-friendly calculator design will provide and guide an individual through a series of steps. Locating their address on a satellite map, drawing a free-form polygon around the trees, the lawns, and the shrubs. I think in this image you'll see the lawn is red and the trees are green, and the gardens and shrubbery and understory is yellow. Measuring this area, in the case of this landscape, it's 700 square meters of total property, and combining to just over 1,000 square meters of total landscape. Processing that result to the reader, in this case, it sequesters 2.5 metric tons of CO2 which is enough clean air, or produces enough clean air to support a family of almost 6 people. Once developed into the expected user phase, it'll be simple enough for a junior school student to be able to use this and the information shared back with the user will be in a form of an infographic, again, for ease of use of sharing of information. The secondary purpose of developing this tool, as I will share with you in some of the coming slides, is our intent to actually map the urban landscape, both private and public, to gain better access or understanding of its makeup across Canada, and the climate contributions and the balance between gray and green infrastructure, not just in Canada, but around the world. The Canadian Nursery Landscape Associations, its partners and members also see significant opportunities to participate in the climate adaptation from our growers through to our retail garden centers and through our design, build, contractor, maintenance. To engage the public with tools we create to connect plants and people for this greener, healthier urban climate. I'm going to give you an example of our 3 main partners and one of our key initiatives this year in 2022. Now, CNLA, who I'm here to represent, is going through an exciting year in Canada with their 4,300 members, celebrating our 100th year as a Canadian Nursery Landscape Association. Now, CNLA has been the driving force behind the development of this new clean air calculator, and the many partners believe the significance of this tool will bring to our public and government engagement. We continue to work with all levels of government to better understand how living landscapes can play a vital role in everything that we do, from plant production to our environment, to climate adaptation, and even to our public health and private sectors. Most notable of late is our effort with our current government as it promised to plant 2 billion trees over the next 10 years in the last election. We see our success in now having secured 10% of these trees originally earmarked for forestry to now be destined for urban centers to be planted in cities across Canada. As we have many growers in the room, I'm sure you can see how this is not a small undertaking, however equally exciting for our growers to participate. But it's also going to take all of us within CNLA and our partnerships from retail to the construction professional to see this through to completion when it happens. Year of the Garden will be celebrated in 2022, where we will celebrate everything gardening in Canada. Planting red in a garden will show our Canadian garden pride. Connecting the public with their garden's contribution to the Clean Air Calculator is another key part of our initiative to bring this to the public. And engage everyone in Canadian garden space through many municipal proclamations across Canada and a wide array of community and private sector engagements. The Green City Foundation, probably one of our most exciting developments in the past 4 years, has been the creation of this foundation. As our newest public-facing partner, Samsung's listening. Many of our public-facing partners with a mission of connecting plants and people for a greener, healthier urban climate. This is where the title was stolen from. The goal of this organization was to create a strong community partnerships in greening communities across Canada, where we have the ability to match community resources, our members' professional greening knowledge, to facilitate conversations and community growth around urban landscapes. It is our vision to not only protect, nurture, and enhance, and even grow urban green spaces, but also to inspire others to do the same. We will not only provide expertise and project resources to meaningful community projects in alignment with our mission, but also provide communication and partnership opportunities in order to grow the mission further into the community. Through private and public sector participation, utilizing our Clean Air Calculator to connect any planted landscape and the people who care for them as part of our larger green community. All of this with the goal of developing the resources to facilitate more projects and more community engagement. I can't wait to share with you in the future the successes of this partnership. And lastly, just prior to the beginning of the global COVID-19 outbreak, CNLA acquired a long-standing organization in Canada called Communities in Bloom Canada. as part of our landscape family. This organization engages municipalities in competition to create greener, healthier urban climates for their citizens, benchmark municipal performance as it relates to urban greening, climate adaptation, and quality of life for those that live within these communities. It's also creates an environment of continuous improvement and celebrates wins of all that participate provincially, nationally, and internationally. With that, I thank you for your time and allowing me the opportunity to share with you the Canadian Nursery and Landscape Association's commitment to a greener, healthier urban climate. And I look forward to returning in the coming years to share with you the successes and challenges as we grow these greening initiatives forward. Thank you very much.
So really, there's nothing happening in Canada.
That was really hard to shorten down into 20 minutes.
Yes. Any questions for Alan? Come on up to the mic.
Hello, Mr. Erdal. I've been working in Middle East last 15 years as a landscape architect. We are in the area that water is more precious than other part of the world, and our soil is more salty here. So we have lots of challenges. And in terms of sustainability, so what is your thought? It's and we are dictated by LEED and sustainability to use more xeriscape than the planting. So more plants, more water consumption, or less plant, less water consumption. Which one is more sustainable?
It really depends on the environment. I'm speaking out of term because I've spent my entire life in the largest freshwater basin in the world. So excuse my ignorance as I grapple with your question. I think there always is a balance depending on what your objective and what your resource and availability to do all kinds of things as it relates to population and climate. The reality of where carbon and how plants can mitigate and participate in the carbon equation is directly related to our ability to support life. Also, the hotter, as we know here, the hotter it gets, the drier it gets, the longer that water will stay aloft, and the less likely it is to fall on the land. When we find regions where we have the cooling effect and the ability for a landscape to evaporate, then we can see the ability for the cooling effect, which will create greater rainfall, which will create a little bit of balance. But again, in an ecosystem like you are experiencing here, I realize a significant amount of that is man-made. So it again comes down to resource and the impacts that you want to have on your population. But ultimately, the most sustainable one is the one that maximizes the balance between your natural environment and your built ecosystem that the residents of this region call home.
Thank you.
Anything else for Alan? Okay, Alan's easy to reach as well through the CNLA and through us through the Green City Committee. So if there's anything else that comes up, please feel free to ask. I'm going to ask Audrey now to come up and just do a little bit of a some closing remarks and introduce our last sponsor, which will be Hatay. You want to come first, Audrey?
Hello to you all here in the room and there globally listening online. I'm Audrey Timm. I'm Technical Advisor to AIPH. I manage our Green City program. I manage other things within AIPH, but today we're talking about Green City. The priorities of humanity are changing. We've heard today of the many ways that we're approaching it, and I must say that certainly in my opinion, the speakers today have surpassed our expectations in addressing the theme of the conference today, Greening Cities for Sustainable Development. We started off with Mr. Maher Nasser from the United Nations, who spoke about how the United Nations supports and values any gathering that brings the world together, particularly a gathering that's focusing on improving the lives of people through sustainability. We then heard from Singapore, from Mr. Larry Ng. Singapore really attracts the admiration of many places and people around the world. And we were fascinated to hear that their success is not a question of luck. It's a question of long-term planning and good government, good governance, and strategic thinking. We then had Pablo Lopez, who spoke about the analysis of the city's contribution to global conservation agendas, highlighting where the overlaps are and where they're in accordance and where the gaps are that either cities or nations need to do a bit more. After the tea break, Mr. Timm Briercliffe, Secretary General to AIPH, spoke passionately about how we feel that we're part of something big, part of something that matters, and how everything that we do in AIPH is to inspire people into action, into positive action, and to change the way the world can be if we recognize the role that plants can bring in sustaining our lives. We just heard from Mr. Alan White of the Canadian Nursery and Landscape Association, who introduced how important carbon is and how he brings that into the relevance of individual lives. Spoke about the progress in engaging in conversations that lead to action by individuals. And this brings me back to our first speaker from the United Nations, Mr. Maher Nasser, who said that the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals provide a roadmap that shows us the way to a better future. He asks, can we do this? Yes, we can. And it's not a question of confidence, he says. It's a question of determination, and I think we've seen a lot of that today. So AIPH is very encouraged by the actions, the strategies, and the enthusiasm of nations, cities, organizations, and individuals, and we value their collaboration as we write the first draft of a new history of leaders who are changing the direction of planetary health. You've heard today from some of our expos, which are putting the Green City principles into action, and Bill introduced the sponsors that we have, which is Expo 2023 Doha, Expo 23 Suncheon International Garden Festival, and I'm very pleased to say that our third sponsor for this meeting, this conference in the spring meeting, is Expo 2021 Hatay, and we're delighted to have the Mayor of Hatay, Mr. Lütfü Savaş, to present to us and to speak to us today. We do have a video of Hatay, which we will show you before, and then we have the Mayor who will speak, and Hakan Aslan who will translate. So I look forward to you learning a bit about Hatay. Thank you very much.
One of the oldest settlements of humanity, the Queen of the East, founded on the fertile lands of the Amik Plain, the host of 13 civilizations from the Hittites to the Ottomans. Silk Road's gateway to the Mediterranean, one of the ancient capitals of Mesopotamia. Homeland of tolerance. One of UNESCO's World Cities of Gastronomy, where flavors, cultures, and civilizations meet. This is Hatay. This unique city is now embarking on a brand new and long journey. It is preparing to host Expo, an important international organization. With its 2 million visitors, Expo 2021 Hatay will be a giant organization that offers culture, arts, education, and entertainment events. This giant organization will be performed in 2 different attraction centers of 320 deckers in total, consisting of Expo Square, International City Gardens, International Gastronomy Center, outdoor exhibition areas, and open concert venue with a capacity of 10,000 people. Expo Arsus site is one of these centers, consisting National City Gardens, National Gastronomy Village, outdoor and indoor exhibition areas, an amphitheater for 3,500 people, plant museum, Garden of Civilizations, biological pond, medicinal and aromatic plants garden, and Street of Culture and Art Street. Expo Antakya site is the other one. While deciding on the theme of Expo 2021 Hatay, we were inspired by the tens of thousands of years of history and cultural texture of our city. We have chosen our theme as Garden of Civilizations to explain the importance of cooperation and partnership in the development and progress of civilizations throughout history. We also support our theme with 4 sub-themes titled to create opportunities for various sectors: sustainable development and organic farming, good food for a good life, medicinal and aromatic herbs for health, creative roads on cultural brotherhood. Expo 2021 Hatay is waiting for you with Garden of Civilizations theme and its sub-themes: wonderful horticultural areas, non-stop activities, tasteful gastronomy center, colorful art street, and entertainment areas. Let's meet in Hatay. Let's discover the Expo.
Sayın Başkan, çok kıymetli Genel Sekreter, Yönetim Kurulu üyeleri, Expo ailesi ve çok kıymetli misafirler, hepinizi sevgiyle, saygıyla selamlıyorum ve sizlerle birlikte olduğumuz için de çok mutluyuz.
Dear President of AIPH, General Secretary, and dear delegates and guests, welcome to this Expo AIPH, Green Conference, and welcome to this meeting.
Bugün bereketin, zarafetin ve nezaketin temsilcisi Dünya Kadınlar Günü ve kadınların bütün hepsinin gününde tebrik ediyorum.
Today is the special day for women, and that's why through this organization I also celebrate the Women's Day and greetings to all women in the world.
Biraz önce seyrettiğimiz videoda olduğu gibi sizleri 1 Nisan'dan itibaren Hatay'a bekliyoruz. Hatay, Türkiye'nin en güneyinde, Suriye'nin komşuluğunda, Akdeniz'e açılan 1.671.000 nüfusa sahip, aynı zamanda Suriyeli sığınmacılarla birlikte 2,5 milyon nüfusu bulan önemli bir şehir.
And you have seen our video regarding our organization Expo 21 Hatay, and we are opening our organization on 1st of April, and we are waiting for all of you to our organization. And Hatay has the population 1,671,000, and with the Syrian immigrants, today the population is about over actually 2.5 million. And the province of Hatay is located in the southernmost province, of Turkey, and has the neighborhood of Syria.
Yüz ölçümü 5403 kilometre kare olup Amanos Dağları şehri 2 ayrı parçaya bölmüştür. Bir tarafta Suriye'ye komşu olan 6 şehir, diğer tarafta Akdeniz'in kıyısında 7 şehre sahiptir.
Actually, the province of Hatay is about 1,554 square kilometer, and the mountains called Amanos divides the province in 2 parts. 5 of the towns are located in one side and 7 towns on the other side, which has the characteristics of the Mediterranean climate.
İlklerin ve enlerin şehri Hatay, 3 ayrı Semavidinin Anadolu'daki yerleştikleri ilk yerdir.
Actually, Hatay is one of the cities of the history which was recognized with the first of events, and today Hatay is well-known city with 3 religions, alive religions in the world, and they live together.
Bu 3 Semavidinin ilk ibadet yerleri Hatay'dadır ve ilk Hristiyan kelimesi Hatay'da kullanılmıştır ve Hristiyan dünyasının ilk mağara kilisesi Hatay'dadır.
And the first religious places, I mean, of these religions, including Christianity, Jewish religion, and Islam, are, I mean, located in Hatay province today. And the first word, I mean, the word of Christianity was used for the first time in the province of Hatay in the history.
Önce Museviler, sonra Hristiyanlar, daha sonra Müslümanlar Hatay'da yaşamaya başlamıştır. Ve Anadolu'daki ilk caminin ismi Hatay'da ilk Hristiyanlığı kabul eden Habib-i Neccar'ın ismi verilmiştir.
Actually, I mean, firstly, Jewish people had lived in the region of Hatay, and then Christian people came here to this region, and finally, Muslim people had started to live, I mean, in the region of Hatay. And in the history, interestingly, the first mosque was named by a Christian person, and today still the mosque can be visited.
Bereketli Hilal'ın Mezopotamya'nın tam ortasında ilk buğdayın ehilleştirildiği ve ilk yetiştirildiği, aynı zamanda ilk zeytinin üretildiği 3 şehirden bir tanesidir.
Actually, today it's known that, I mean, the first crop, the first olive, I mean, was produced, I mean, in the old region of Turkey in Hatay province.
İpek yolunun Akdeniz'e açılan kapısı aynı zamanda tarihteki ilk ışıklandıran caddenin olduğu yerdir.
Actually, in the history, it was the door, to the Mediterranean Sea for the Silk Road, and that's why it has the most important location.
İlk at yarışlarının yapıldığı ve tarihte gayri resmi olimpiyatların yüzyıllarca yapıldığı dünyadaki 3 büyük hipodromdan birisi Hatay'dadır.
Actually, Hatay was actually they had this street, I mean, which was the first eliminated one in the history, and today, when you also look at the history, it was the first city where the Olympic Games were organized.
Hatay bir gastronomi şehridir. Hatay'da 13 medeniyet, 27 kültür bugüne kadar yaşamıştır.
Today, Hatay is a gastronomy city where actually which hosted 13 civilizations and 24 cultures in its history.
Ve Hatay, Akdeniz, Kuzey Afrika, Orta Doğu, Anadolu arasında yüzyıllarca önemli bir ticaret merkezi olmuştur.
Hatay has been one of the most important commercial centers throughout the history because of its location, which is close to Africa's Arabian countries, Anatolia and Europe.
Bu ticaret sayesinde birçok renk, birçok din, birçok mezhep, birçok etnik kökenli insan, birçok bölgeden gelen insan her biri bir çeşit yemek getirmiştir ve şu anda 600'ün üzerinde yemeğimiz mevcuttur.
Thanks to this location, Hatay region had many immigrants with their own different culinaries, and today we are speaking about over 600 type of foods in its gastronomic culture.
Bu 600 yemekle birlikte UNESCO bizi 2017 yılında UNESCO'nun kreatif şehirler ağına almıştır ve dünyadaki 26. gastronomi şehridir.
That's the reason actually, because of its over 600 type of foods, UNESCO has accepted Hatay as one of the creative 26 creative cities in the world. That's why today it is one of the gastronomy cities of UNESCO.
Hatay'ın coğrafyası gerçekten eşsizdir. Bir tarafta uçsuz bucaksız sahilleri, temiz sahilleri, masmavi Akdeniz'i, bereketli ovası, Amanos dağlarında müthiş bitki florası, yeraltı zenginlikleri ve kaplıca sularıyla çok enteresan ve bereketli bir şehirdir.
Actually, its location is unique, and Hatay today, I mean, has a wonderful long beach, wonderful mountains, and very fertile lands. Mainly in two parts, because those mountains, I mean, divide the province actually in two parts.
Türkiye ve Hatay dünyanın orta kuşağında yer almaktadır. Avrupa'da toplam bitki örtüsünde 12.000 çeşit bitki varken Türkiye'de Avrupa kadar bitki vardır.
Turkey and Hatay are located in the middle part of the world, and today in Europe we can talk about approximately 12,000 endemic plants, but at the same time only in Turkey more than 12,000 endemic plants as well.
Türkiye'deki 12.000 bitkinin 4.000 tanesi endemiktir. Bunların 300 tanesi Hatay'da bulunmaktadır. Sadece Hatay'da da 51 tane endemik bitki vardır.
Actually, I mean about 12,000 plants, 4,000 of them are endemic just for this continent, and about 400, I mean, in Turkey, and about 50 are, I mean, we are talking about in the region of Hatay.
Bunlardan bir tanesi hemen karşıda gördüğümüz Expo 2022-21 logomuzdur.
Actually, one of the endemic plants, actually you can see the logo of Expo 2021 Hatay, which was inspired by an endemic plant, flower in the region of Hatay.
Bu logonun çok önemli bir fonksiyonu vardır. Hatay'da 13 medeniyet yaşamıştır. Ve bu logomuz barış çiçeği de yaklaşık genellikle 13 yapraklıdır. Ve dünyada sadece Amanos Dağları'nın çok küçük bir yerinde böyle 300 dönümlük arazi içerisinde bulunmaktadır. Ve adı barış çiçeğidir.
That endemic flower has a very interesting features and story. It can grow, I mean, only in a very small part of Amanos Mountains, and has 13 leaves, as similar to Hatay history, which was hosted by 13 civilizations.
Bu logoyu yapmamızdaki amaç dünyada özellikle 11 yıldır Hatay'ın hemen bitişinde olan Savaş'ın kardeş kanını bitirmek istediğimiz için istedik ki Hatay'da bir expo yapalım. Herkesi barışa çağıralım. Barışa çağırırken de logomuzu barış çiçeğinden yapalım. Bunu Düsseldorf'ta Sayın Başkanımız, Sayın Genel Sekreterimiz ve Yönetim Kurulu hatırlar. İstedik ki bu bölgeye barış gelsin, barış için bu expo'yu yapalım dedik.
The name of the flower is the flower of peace. Actually, when we wanted to organize an expo here, we wanted to help and support the peace, I mean, in this region, which was suffered for many years by the war, especially in Syria. And that's why now we are trying to organize a very good expo and support the peace. And the dear delegates, members of AIPH, the President and the Secretary General may remember our aim a couple of years ago when we mentioned this.
İnşallah 1 Nisan'da hep birlikte barışı hep birlikte çağıracağız.
Hopefully, I mean, on the 1st of April, we're going to celebrate together our opening and our expo.
Ben 32 yıllık doktorum. 13 yıldır da belediye başkanlığı yapıyorum.
Actually, I'm a doctor for about 32 years and have been serving as the mayor of Hatay for 13 years.
Ve ekolojik dengenin ve çevrenin insan sağlığı açısından ne kadar önemli olduğunu biliyorum.
And I do know the importance of ecological balance, for the nature and for the human.
Bundan tam 7 yıl önce mesai arkadaşlarımızla bir toplantı yaptık. Hatay için ne yaparız diye konuştuk.
About 7 years ago, when we had a meeting with our colleges in the municipality, and we wanted to do something for the future of Hatay.
Sonuç itibariyle toplantıdan çıktığımızda insan odaklı doğaya, doğal hayata ve tarihi mirasa saygılı insanların eşit, adil ve kaliteli hizmet aldığı.
And after the meeting, we have decided to have a city for the future of Hatay, which was, human focused, maybe respectful to natural life and historical heritage.
Yaşanabilir, yaşam kalitesi yüksek ve aynı zamanda sürdürülebilir bir çevreyi nasıl oluştururuz diye düşündük.
Actually, we were discussing at the time how to have a city with a high quality and with sustainable agriculture and life.
Bunlardan bir tanesi özellikle tarımla uğraşan ihtiyaç sahibi küçük çiftçilere destek olup tarımda insanları geleceğe taşımak.
Actually, one of our first aim was to support the agricultural people in the rural life.
İyi tarım yapmak ve şehri daha yaşanabilir hale nasıl getireceğimizi karar verdik.
Actually, we have decided to have a city with a livable city with a high quality of agricultural life.
Ve insanların bu konuda farkındalığını arttırmak için de Expo'ya müracaat ettik.
And finally, we wanted to increase the awareness about the green city, green life. That's why we made our application to AIPH for the Expo.
Biliyorduk ki sadece belediyenin bu işi yapması yetmez.
We knew that only the efforts of the municipality wasn't enough, and society had to be educated.
İstedik ki halk da buna katılsın.
And we wanted that the people, the whole society, have to include in this project.
Küçük çiftçileri ve küçük çiftçilerle birlikte kooperatiflere destek vermek için bir plan yaptık.
Actually, we made a plan to support the cooperatives and people in the rural life.
Odakta küçük çiftçiler, kooperatif, bunların eğitilmesi, üretimlerine katkı sağlanması, üretimden sonra da pazarlanmaları için, pazarlama yapabilmeleri için bir şirket kurduk.
And we established a company for those, people living in the countryside, in the rural life, with a rural life, and we want to support, the production of in the agricultural sector, and organize some education to increase the effectiveness in the agriculture, and then help in marketing of the products produced by those village people.
Şirket üzerinden kooperatiflere ve küçük üreticilere eğitim verdik. Onlara tohum, fide ve organik gübre konusunda destek veriyoruz.
Today, actually, our company, which has been established, through the municipality, is supporting the rural people, village people in the countryside by providing them seeds, fertilizer, and some other necessary products related in agriculture.
Şu anda 70'in üzerinde kooperatif ve 970'in üzerinde de 9700 çiftçinin üzerinde de çiftçiyle sözleşmeli tarım yapıyoruz.
Today, actually, we are working with 70 cooperatives and with a number about 9,700 village families in a way that a contract has been made between the company and those people and the cooperatives.
Üretilenleri teknolojiyle birleştirip şu anda 100 civarında ürünü Avrupa'ya ve Orta Doğu'ya, Doğu Avrupa'ya satıyoruz.
And through this awareness, actually, we have started to produce over 100 different products and have started to export to some European, Russian and Arabian countries.
Bununla birlikte bizim tükettiğimiz elektriği doğadan, özellikle sudan, rüzgardan ve güneş enerjisinden üretmeye başladık. Çeşitliliğini ve gücünü arttırmaya gayret ediyoruz.
And as we know, the importance of having green city, we have started to arrange some projects related to wind energy, green energy in reality, and solar power.
Bizim otobüs duraklarımızı ve ışıklandırmalarımızı güneş enerjisinden sağlamaya gayret ediyoruz.
And the lighting inside the town and light fitting systems in the bus stations will be put, with the solar power.
Toplu taşıma konusunda elektriğe geçmek için çalışmalarımız var.
And we are working on public transport system to transform to the green energy, and that's why we are planning to get all electric buses and coaches in the public transportation.
Bisiklet kullanımını arttırıcı faaliyetler içerisindeyiz.
And we are also arranging routes, to increase the use of the bicycle.
Bununla birlikte 2019 yılının sonlarına doğru Avrupa'nın yeşil mutabakatı imdadımıza yetişti.
And finally, by the end of the year 2019, there was the European Green Deal.
Çin, Avrupa yenilikçi, yeşil ve akıllı şehirler konsepti içerisinde önemli bir proje yapıyoruz.
And we accepted and signed this contract, and today, we are trying to create a very effective smart city project for Hatay.
Bu proje çok az birkaç şehir içerisinde yapılmaktadır Avrupa'da.
Actually, a similar project is only available a few cities in Europe at the moment.
Topraksız tarım, sadece canlı balık gübresi ve suyla tarım yapılıyor.
Actually, we have this. We are trying to create a system to create agriculture without using a soil and using an organic fertilizer.
500 metrekare içerisinde hidrofonik ve aquafonik üretim yapıyoruz.
Actually, in every 500 square meter, we are producing an aquaphonic productions.
Bu gerçekten de mucizevi bir üretim tarzı.
Actually, for us, for Hatay, for the region of Hatay, it's a kind of miracle production change for the society.
Normal çiçek veya sebzenin üretim zamanının %40'ıyla bir sebzeyi çiçeği üretebiliyorsunuz.
And the production of the horticulture products has decreased by about 40% up to 50%.
Bu toprak olmadığı için mantar, bakteri, parazit, virüsten arınmış tertemiz bir ürün elde ediyorsunuz.
Because we are not using soil, and that kind of method of production. We are not facing serious illnesses regarding the plants.
Bu üretim tarzını dezavantajlı gruplara kurs veriyoruz.
And about this technique method, we are trying to educate, the disabled people in the region of Hatay.
100 karbon nötr şehir içerisine girmek için biz başvuru yaptık.
And also we made our application as a city to allocate that province and among the first, 100 cities without carbon dioxide.
Sonuç itibariyle savaşın gölgesinde bir şehir olarak sadece oturup ağlayıp kaderimizle baş başa kalmadık.
As a result, we didn't want to accept the conditions of the war in our region, and we wanted to do something.
Yaklaşık 900 bin sığınmacıyla birlikte yaşayan bir şehir olarak insanlarımızın gelecek adına umutlanmasını sağlamak adına önemli projeler yapıyoruz.
We didn't give up, and today we are hosting immigrations from Syria for about 900,000, and with these immigrations as well, we are trying to create a good, clean future for our society.
İnsanlarımızı umutlandırmak adına yapmış olduğumuz bu projede bizimle paydaş olan Expo Yönetim Kurulu'na, Expo ailesine çok teşekkür ediyorum.
And actually, we are very thankful to AIPH, to the related institutions during this process.
Ve sadece 1 Nisan'da açacağımız Expo açılış gününe değil, bütün Expo sürecince bütün dostlarımızı Hatay'a bekliyoruz.
We don't only invite you on the 1st of April in opening. We like to see you forever. In the city of Hatay, including during the exhibition. Which will take throughout the summer.
Ayrıca Expo'nun hemen bitişinden itibaren yapacağımız uluslararası ticaret ve tarım fuarına herkesi bekliyoruz.
Finally, at the beginning of November, we are going to organize international horticultural exhibition, trade exhibition, and we will be very happy to see you in the international trade fair as well.
Bu yeşil mutabakat konusunda atacağımız adımların hepsinde Expo Yönetim Kurulu'nu yanımızda görmeye devam etmek istiyoruz.
Actually, during the process, of having a green city, we would like to see the related institutions, including AIPH, in our site.
Sabrınız ve gülümsemeniz için teşekkür ediyoruz.
And I'd like to thank you very much for your patience and for your kind listening. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Expo 2021 Hatay, for the presentation. Thank you. I don't know if we have any questions. I'd like to thank the other sponsors as well. 2023 Expo Doha, Qatar, and 2023 Suncheon International Garden Festival for helping us out today. I particularly want to thank the speakers, some of which have gone already. We lost them earlier, but I want to thank the speakers. I want to thank the AIPH team for putting the event together. I want to thank those of you that are here in person. It's so nice to be able to do something in person again for a change. And I want to thank everybody that's joined us via the virtual method. That concludes the Dubai 2020, or the AIPH International Green Cities Conference for 2021 here in Dubai.